Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to join the session today. I'm going to talk a bit about cybersecurity compliance, GRC, in relation to CIOs, the journey that you're going to have to go through, the journey you're probably already on. Some of the pitfalls, the stumble blocks, and hopefully this will help you understand, particularly from security's angle. I won't do a sales pitch, but I'll talk you through the journey and then also what we do. Matt Logan, I'm the Director of Pre-Sales at Securiti. I'm 3 months into my journey with security, but I've got 25 years in the cybersecurity industry. The first 12 years of my life were post-sales implementation for various vendors. And then for the past 13 years, it's been on the sales front end, running technical teams and demonstrating and helping organizations from a technical perspective understand predominantly around data. Probably 50% of my time has been around data with DLP, digital rights management, DSPM, etc. So let's jump into it. So the compliance frontier is changing slightly, and you'll all be fully aware of this. The accountability shift is quite huge more recently, where NIS2, for example, is making IT security a board-level responsibility. We're seeing GDPR enforcement targeting senior managers and making them personally responsible for GDPR breaches. And the IOC, this year alone, has enforced 2/3 of fines in the UK, which is up from the previous year. So more fines are being enforced, more data is being breached. The broader trend is, regulators are expecting CIOs and security leaders to own the accountability for data breaches. Then we have this convergence problem with NIS2 requiring risk-based security controls, GDPR, personal handling of data, and the EU AI Act, which is coming into effect, adds an additional governance layer when it comes to how AI handles data. Traditionally, these have been very siloed and separate, but now they are, if you think about it, they're actually interconnected because data is the foundation of any organization. It's the lifeblood, you could say, of an organization. So the interconnectivity between these two, GDPR, EU AI Act, and digital transformation programs touch all of these regulatory compliances. We're at this inflection point where organizations need to balance agility and security controls. We're seeing a massive uptake in AI, accelerated AI projects, a constant battle to prevent data breaches, and then this very strenuous reliance on being compliant with all of the regulatory compliances. It's not easy. We tend to see a lot of organizations having to perform reactive, manual, and erroneous programs to try and find their data. Data spread everywhere. If you think about digital transformation programs, a lot of organizations will take data from on-prem and just move it to the cloud without really looking at that data. What is the data? What does that contain? How does that data set need to compare to regulatory compliances? It's a bit of a headache for a lot of people. And the regulations change. They're constantly adapting, constantly changing. More and more organizations are getting fined. The adversary, the cyber criminal network, and the attackers out there, the turnover, we're looking billions of dollars for these guys. So it's a very commoditized system now where you can pay ransomware as a service, for example. You can have organizations in foreign states attack an organization of your choice. They have SLAs. If they don't perform, if they don't get the data, you don't pay. So it's really becoming very commoditized. The introduction of AI is adding a lot of hidden risks as well. If you don't know what data AI is touching in your organization, there is potential for that to be leaked. And I'll talk through a hack, the very first publicized hack that happened last month. It was documented this week. Teams operate in silos. Data teams, HR teams, depending on your organization. Typically, it's a very siloed approach. It's trying to bring all of this together into one harmonious working unit, understanding the data, regulatory compliances, how AI is working, and making sure the people who touch the data understand what data they're touching and how they're sharing and using that data. And we're seeing all of these controls are being outpaced with the changes in regulation, size of data, migration to the cloud, etc. Now, I said earlier, data is the sort of lifeblood of an organization, but what we see is a typical enterprise organization petabytes worth of data, thousands of data streams, so applications talking to applications, sharing data, AI models talking with other AI models to try and speed up processes, which equates to billions of files and tens of millions of potential rows or tables of structured data. All of this data is complex in the very fact it's different file formats, different sizes, it lives in different locations, has different permission levels, regulatory requirements, sensitivities, different labeling. And add to the fact the data spread between cloud, private clouds, SaaS clouds, on-premise, it's in data lakes, it's in share filed, it's all over the place. Typically we get organizations asking what may seem as basic questions, but where is the data in my organization? People don't know. Time and time again, and over the past 15 years, the conversation has been very much, oh, I know about this database, but I've moved to the cloud. Or we've got this data share that everyone dumps their information into. It's a corporate share. More so recently, we're seeing, with the movement to the cloud, people have local file copies. You can copy into your own GCP, for example. One question here, has anybody actually been through their own personal share, their corporate share, and cleaned up the data you've copied for local change or local adjustment? I can guarantee I haven't. No one does. So, first question is, where is my data? And what objects? And when I talk about objects, I mean, sensitivity of the data. Is the classification in there? Could be a credit card number, could be HR-related data, employee-related data, related to GDPR, PCI DSS, a whole range of different data types. How do I detect what sensitive data is within those file types across all my environments, and how do I do it accurately? A lot of technologies in the older days were doing regular expressions, keyword pattern matching, which is great to a certain extent, but you tend to get a lot of false positives and incorrect triggers on data. The times are changing. With the advent of AI, we can now use AI to truly classify and detect sensitive assets within a document and do it very quickly and efficiently. What AI models do I have? You'll have sanctioned AI models. Organizations are adopting AI, whether you're talking about MS Copilot, Anthropic's Claude AI, there's a whole range of them. Organizations will use AI to streamline business processes, to faster time to reaction. Maybe you've got a front-end chatbot that's helping, a front-end chatbot to help customers engage quickly with support. The question is, what about the unsanctioned AI within your environment, shadow AI? We see developers downloading AI and trying to use it. People are building their own AIs. They're testing different types of AIs. It's all very well having AI, but what data is that AI going to be trained on? What's it looking at and what's it pointing to? All very, very relevant questions. And then what teams are accessing that data? Do they understand the sensitivity of that data? With all of this in mind, we really need to make sure compliance is not an afterthought. If you think about the level of fines that can be imposed on organizations, GDPR 20 million, 4%, EU AI Act up to 35 million or 7%, and then HIPAA and CCP and a whole range of others. Now, if you were to get breached or have a fine imposed, the ripple effect to your organization is huge. The moment you're non-compliant, the market you have to publicize for GDPR 72 hours, you have to let people know you've been breached, which has a market effect on your organization. There's the brand and reputational damage, leaders now being personally held responsible for breaches, let alone the legal and operational costs associated, the cleanup costs. It impacts everyone from board through all layers of the C-level suite through to the CIOs. Now, this was announced last week. So Anthropic's Claude AI is the first publicized malicious attack that hit 30 global organizations. It was a Chinese state-sponsored attack. And not only is it the first documented use of AI to attack organizations, it's a very large-scale attack targeting major tech companies, financial institutions, chemical and government agencies. The result was mass data exfiltration. The key here is the minimal human oversight. So actually, the way this attack worked is they managed to find a flaw in Claude AI. The human side of it, and 80 to 90% of the attack was autonomous, but the human side of it were a few minutes at each of the 5 stages. It was five stages. So there's the typical, the words just slipped my mind, but the initial phase of there's a term I've completely forgotten, but the 5 stages to an attack, but basically the looking at the environment to work out what to attack and how to get in. So phase 1, they're looking for vulnerabilities and way to exploit. What they did is they targeted an organization, and as opposed to running a full AI command using Claude, which said, go find me sensitive data, vulnerabilities, and exfiltrate it, they broke these commands up into seemingly benign requests so that Claude AI would action those requests. The first one may be, what systems are you running? Claude returned back and answered these systems. Okay, what versions are they running on? Now this first stage took 3 to 4 hours to complete. With the 10% carried out by humans, they literally looked at it and said, okay, well, I can see they've got system X, Y, and Z, and based on the versioning, it has this vulnerability. So they went back and told Claude to use a bunch of tooling that they pushed into the organization to take a foothold based on that vulnerability so they could get into the organization, ascertain where the data is, elevate their privileges within, and then exfiltrate the data. Out of the 5 stages, the 4 stages, the 4th stage was exfiltration, the 5th stage was documentation. They've documented how they got in, and they've shared that publicly. But out of these attacks, the AI element lasted about 10 to 12 hours, and the human input, so the guy at the end, the guy, girl, person at the end, it was less than an hour for them to work out how to do it. Now, this has shifted drastically from typical cyber attacks, which are rooms of people attacking organizations, a lot of paid resource there, utilizing AI. And at one point, Claude did actually question, why am I running these commands? And the attackers just said, I'm an external penetration company and I'm testing your security. And Claude just said, okay. Because if you think about AI, once it's learned, it's learned. If it knows, if you train it on a bunch of data, that data and that intelligence remains within that AI model forever until you retrain. So it's very quick, it's publicized, it's documented, you can read about it, but it's the first time AI has been used as a malicious tool. So, not to scaremonger, obviously these things are real, but how do we now approach this without stalling innovation and look at controlling and understanding all of your data assets? Now, Gartner has termed DSPM and AI TRISM, so data security posture management and AI trust risk security management. It's broken down into many areas. So DSPM, the first and foremost and most important part of any data discovery exercise is where is my data and how does that need to be classified? So scanning all of your repositories, multi-cloud, on-premise, SaaS, streaming data, structured data, unstructured data, get a good footprint of where that data is and what is it. Then who has access to that? What's the governance around that? Is AI touching the data? Are humans touching the data? And then how do we go about enforcing least privilege access against that data set? Then we look at risk management. So prioritizing, remediating, that's a long word to say, misconfigured systems. So for example, we termed a phrase called toxic combinations when it comes to GDPR. We could be looking at German citizens' data in the US. Now, under GDPR, that shouldn't be cross-border data. It needs to be kept in region. So when we look at configuration risk management, it's how did that data get there? Can we clean that up and control where the data sprawl is? And then data flow governance. We want to look at all of the data across the organization, old data, new data, existing data, recreated data. If you think about the quantity in which data grows within an organization, it's constantly being changed, adjusted, manipulated, added. Excuse me. Now, again, another term that we look at is we call rot data. It's redundant, obsolete, and trivial data. So if you're a financial institution, maybe you've got a 7-year retention period on some of your data. The likelihood is, and we work with a lot of FS organizations, they have data that is beyond 7 years old. So let's start identifying the data, redundant, obsolete, and trivia, and clear that data out. Start deleting data. This has a twofold impact. One is it will help you become regulatory compliant quicker, but also if you are doing a lift and shift to the cloud, you're paying for storage fees. So if you've got duplicates and duplicates of data or data you no longer need, clean that data out. And a small side effect is you can reduce your storage fees with the cloud providers. Then we look at the AI TRISM part. So AI governance, and again, this is a Gartner term, it's establishing the safe controls of AI technology, including generative AI. Add to that the compliance management piece. Am I compliant? What security frameworks do I need to put in place? What's the best practice for me as an organization with my data? And how do we control that data? And then importantly, if there is a breach, how can I be notified quickly of that breach? For then me, the organization, to inform the authorities. So again, GDPR within 72 hours. And also to be able to notify the individuals affected by that breach as well. Now, this is a lot. Traditionally, this would be a lot of technologies. Now, what we do at Securiti is all of this under one product. So the way Securiti handles data, Securiti was born 6 years ago on the ideology of sort of democratizing privacy regulations and getting it in the hands of the C-suite versus a bunch of lawyers. So the platform today has 33 different regulatory frameworks built into the product. We can discover data. So our first sort of hook is to look across all of the different public clouds, data clouds, whether you're in AWS, Amazon, whether you've got Snowflake, Databricks as a data lake, data warehousing. Look in private clouds as well, SaaS clouds, understand what AI models, and basically get a good grip on what data you have. Once you've got that, we then surface that information up into what we call a knowledge graph, which is a single source of truth. It's a single point of where data is stored. We can feed in external processes, third-party information, regulatory information, but we can quickly and easily allow you to pivot through the data so that you can understand what data do I have, who has access to it, do I need to reduce the data footprint, am I able to accelerate my AI adoption by cleaning data and providing the AI learning, the AI models a specific set of data that you know is trusted, clean, and up to date. Prevent any data exposure, and also automatically at a click of a button, am I compliant? And we have the ability to do a one-click, test my compliance against 33 global regulatory frameworks out the box. One of our customers in the US, T-Mobile, they got fined in August last year, $60 million over unauthorized data access. That's a huge fine. And T-Mobile came to us looking to understand their data footprint. And they had a very specific set of controls and requirements. They have 130 million subscribers, and over 4 years, they wanted to look at their 400 petabytes worth of data. And they presumed that 3% of that is high priority data that needs to be retired. And they projected a 12.4 million cost saving over the 3-year period. As of the 14th of October, with these guys, we inventorized 69 of 100 petabytes. This is year one of a 4-year program. We connected to 10,500 different systems. The data minimized on the top right, they were aiming for 12 petabytes across 400. In 69, we identified 27 petabytes worth of data for them to clean and remove. So we'd already tripled their initial estimation based on only scanning, less than a quarter of their data. And they estimated their annual saving costs of 6.8 million, purely based on 69 petabyte scans so far. The point of talking about this is, with a firm understanding of what your data is, where your data is, removing duplicate copies, obsolete information, getting rid of the stuff you don't need, anything that's over a certain time period, or multiple copies thereof, cleaning that data set provides not only a cost saving based on where the data is stored, but also the teams of people who need to go and investigate post-breach information. Once you've cleaned the data, you can compare yourself to, what I'm trying to say here. Once you've understood your data footprint, it's easier to conform with regulatory compliance when you know where your data is and you know you don't have data sat on a server somewhere I guarantee you your system database administrators will have a copy of sensitive data on a server under their desk. They take backup copies. We've seen organizations who moved everything to the cloud, but they took a backup first of it and stored it on a system. Full HR data of an organization with 100,000 employees just sat on a server internally. So understand that data footprint, ensure that you're regulatory compliant, minimize the potential of a breach. We're not going to stop a breach. We interact with a lot of third-party products to help control data. We can tag data, we can label it. We can ensure that your organization has a good grasp and understanding of data, where it is, how it's being used, so that you can then sleep better at night, pretty much when it comes to, am I regulatory compliant or not? And, as an organization, you need to continue working. You need to minimize brand damage, reputational damage, and comply as well. There's a very quick whistle-stop, I can't say that, whistle-stop tour of the products, but we've got a desk out there, a table. If you want some more information, come and see us. We're here to help. We can help you discover all your data assets and tie into regulatory compliance and everything there above. So, okay, brilliant, thank you.